Uh, Good morning, everyone. So, Human, it's not full screen. I don't see your. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our e-seminar series on translational biomedical engineering. Uh, Today is our last presentation uh, of 2020. I would like to. I have some good news to share with you, and then some statistics. But I'm very pleased uh, to announce that today we have a panel discussion. It's a little bit different than what we used to have before, and the panel discussion will be about the role of university and institutions, the industrial partnership units, and then innovation centers, and translating research findings into clinics for biomedical engineering. So today we have Dr. Aislinn Sirk, our Industrial Liaison Officer from University of Victoria, also Dr. Lindsay Fredlick, another Industry Liaison Officer from University of Victoria, and Jerome Eduardo, Associate Director of the Coast Capital Innovation Center at the University of Victoria, three of my very good friends. So we're going to have a very nice panel discussion today. But before we start, I would like to, as usual, let you know that this talk will be recorded and then posted on our YouTube channel. We will send you the link in a follow-up email after the meeting, but you can always look into find us on YouTube. Again, during the talk, during the panel discussion today, if you have any questions, please write your questions in the question box, which is at the bottom of this platform. Also, please make sure that you participate in the poll and provide us with your feedback. Since this is the last talk of 2020, I wanted to provide you with some statistics about what we've done so far. So we had 24 speakers from industry, academia, regulatory organizations, and even grad students who gave a talk at at this e-seminar series. I would like to extend my appreciation to them, the speakers, including today's speakers. They take their time and then prepare slides and presentations. So it's a great, basically, effort. And so we were very lucky to have these speakers in our these seminar series. I would like to also thank our participants. We have more than 1,600 registered participants from all over the world. So you can see the distribution of participants, the global distribution that we have of participants from North America, from Europe, from Asia, and then also even from Australia. Given the time difference, this is amazing. Thank you very much for all of you for participating in this seminar series and for supporting us. As I mentioned, we have our YouTube channel, in which we post the recorded talks. This is good because some people who probably did not have time to participate or attend these meetings, like the live presentations, they can go and then watch the videos later. I mean, we have more than 5,500 views on our YouTube channel, which is pretty amazing, and we are very happy to see that. That these videos are being watched, and we hope that you find these videos and these seminar series useful. Uh, uh, One thing about these kinds of events is that you cannot do these or run these events without the support that we receive from sponsors. And I would like to thank our uh, wonderful sponsors, CellLink, Montreal Transmed Tech, Stem Cell Technologies, 4M Biotech, Reolution, Fluidform, Terasaki Institute, and last but not least, University of Victoria. All of them were there to support us in the form of providing us with platform, and then also providing us with support for inviting the speakers. Good thing about, I would like to also share some good news about this e-seminar series. We are not going to stop today. We will have speakers next lined up for next year. So we have amazing speakers, including the CEO of CellLink, Dr. Eric Catalom, which is CellLink is a major bioprinting company. We have also professors from all over the world, including Dr. Peter Zanstra, Professor Diego Montovani from the West Coast and from the East Coast, and then also Mr. Patrick Bedford from the center almost, although he is closer to the East Coast, I believe. We have Professor Woo-Soo Kim from the West Coast of Canada, and then Dr. Anis Haj, the CEO of Reolution from the East Coast. And then we'll go to Europe, and then we will have Professor Malgorzata Wladorowski from Poland, and then we have Professor Eric Aubin from École Polytechnique in Montreal, and then we will have more and more speakers who will be joining these e-seminar series. Again, I would like to thank our future speakers in advance, and then I'm looking forward to hearing their talks. If you have any questions, as always, you can always email me and Human and Tahid, who are the organizers of this event. Any questions, any suggestions are welcome. Also, if you need to receive up-to-date the latest news about these seminar series, please follow us on our Twitter. So the Twitter handle is at TransLBME. And lastly, I would like to thank the Montreal Transmed Tech for sponsoring this talk. Montreal Transmed Tech Institute aims to support the development of innovative medical technologies, train the next generation of professionals, and make innovations in life sciences and engineering a source of wealth for society. So based on a living lab approach, Transmed Tech provides an integrated environment that supports interdisciplinary, collaborative processes and co-creation of new medical technologies and intervention to catalyze their development and adoption by users. Thank you very much, Montreal Transmed Tech Institute, for your continued support. So with that, now I would like to invite our speakers to the virtual panel. So today, as I mentioned, we have Dr. Aislinn Sirk, who obtained her Bachelor of Science in Chemistry at the University of Victoria, and then she obtained her PhD at the University of Calgary and a postdoc at MIT, both in electrochemistry. She then returned to the University of Victoria, where she obtained her law degree, fantastic, focusing on intellectual property. She has worked at the University of Victoria's research partnership and knowledge translation unit as an Industrial Liaison Officer for over 4 years, and her specialization, she is specializing in engineering and software. Our next panelist today is Dr. Lindsay Frehlick, who is an Industrial Liaison Officer within the University of Victoria Research Partnerships Office. Lindsay holds a Bachelor of Degree and a PhD in Biochemistry from University of Victoria. Before beginning a career As an industry liaison in 2011, she worked as a research associate, clinical research technician, and sessional instructor. In her current role at the University of Victoria, she manages research partnerships, contract negotiations, intellectual property, and technology transfer activities within the health, biomedical, and life science field. Our last panelist today is Jerome Eduardo, who is the Associate Director of the Coast Capital Innovation Center at the University of Victoria. Jerome is an electrical engineer. He's like me, with over, I'm a mechanical engineer, but he's an engineer like us. And then he has over 25 years of experience working in both academia and industry. So he knows us well, and he knows the other side as well. In industry, he has worked extensively in various roles in the areas of telecommunication, electronic controls, and payment systems, and as an entrepreneur. Since 2016, Jerome has been leading the Coast Capital Innovation Center at the University of Victoria, the on-campus, which is an on-campus startup incubator program. Under Jerome's leadership, the center experienced a tenfold increase of entrepreneurial activities, supporting and working with over 100 startup companies from all sectors, including biotech companies. Welcome, Aislinn, Lindsay, and Jerome to our virtual panel. We are very happy and very excited to have you here with us. So the format of this panel is going to be a short presentation by our RPKM, Research Partnership Unit first, and then the Innovation Center next. So there will be a few slides that our panelists will share with us. And then we will start with a Q&A, a discussion, more of a discussion. So I encourage all the participants to think about questions that they may have from their tech transfer units, and then also from those units that basically are at the Innovation Center and in their institutions, and then share their questions with us, and then I hope that this will be a great. We will have a great discussion today. So I'll actually pass the floor to Lindsay. So Lindsay, maybe you can unmute your microphone and then share your screen, and then we can hear about your role at University of Victoria.
Great, thanks. And Aislinn, thanks for sharing the screen. First, I'd like to thank Professor Mohsen Akbari and Professor Houmen Savoji for inviting us to this panel today. Hello, I'm Dr. Lindsay Frelick. As Mohsen mentioned, I'm an Industry Liaison Officer with the University of Victoria Research Partnerships Office. And I'm excited to be here today, not only to introduce our office, but also talk to you about the panel during the panel discussion about partnerships and technology transfer from the university's perspective. Outside of work, I also sit on the board of our local life sciences group and volunteer as a board member and treasurer of one of our UVic not-for-profits focused on sexual health and research and education. I'm also own a bowling alley with my husband, so in my spare time between work and hanging out with my two sons, I help run a small business. I'm also, next slide. Sorry. I'm also a proud UVic alum, and I got my bachelor's and PhD in biochemistry. Hopefully you're all familiar with UVic, but if not, this is one of our famous aerial views. We're situated on the southern tip of Vancouver Island, and we're surrounded by forested hiking trails and just a short walk from a bunch of beautiful West Coast beaches. It's really an extraordinary research and dynamic learning environment, though, that gives us our UVic edge, and it makes us one of Canada's most extraordinary environments for discovery and innovation. Some of our research strengths include excellence in health and life sciences, with over 200 researchers dedicated to lifelong health research. And we also have advanced materials hubs featuring multidisciplinary research in chemistry and physics, as well as civil, mechanical, electrical, and computer engineering. Next slide. UVic is strongly committed to translating and mobilizing technologies and knowledge. Our Research Partnerships Office is the bridge between UVic's research community and our valued external partners. Our office has been formed over the last several years through the merger of several units on campus to form a one-stop shop that facilitates and grows research partnerships, develops research agreements, and supports technology transfers and entrepreneurship. As an Industry Liaison Officer, we engage with companies all over the world to identify and facilitate industry-sponsored research projects, bring in research funding, and promote UVic's research excellence. We also manage technology transfer activities such as patent filings and evaluating and licensing of UVic technologies. UVic has a creator-owned IP policy that gives our researchers and the company partners options on how to commercialize their IP that they create. Our office also has entrepreneurship support through our Coast Capital Innovation Center, which Jerome will talk about shortly. Next slide. So these are just a few fast facts on UVic. I'm just going to cover a couple of these though, because just have a few minutes. So there's about $1 billion in annual economic impact generated by UVic research. One of the ways our office contributes to this is by helping bring in a portion of our sponsored research funding. And about 25 million a year is brought in through contracts and other sources, and that can be leveraged using grant funding. Industry liaison officers help companies and researchers identify opportunities to stretch their R&D dollars through grants that leverage a company's cash and in-kind contributions, which increase the overall value of the projects. UVic has filed over 550 patents that have come out of over 1,000 invention disclosures. And currently our office manages about 65 disclosures a year and files about 20 patents a year. So our small team keeps very busy. And Jerome, next slide, will talk to you about the startups and the exploding activity in that area. So in the last couple of minutes here, I just want to give a few quick examples to highlight the range of our ILO activities. So I've shamelessly spotlighted our host here, Professor Mohsen Akbari, in these first two examples. So Mohsen works with my engineering ILO colleague, Chris Flores, who unfortunately wasn't able to join the panel today. Hopefully he's in the audience though and can answer some questions. Our office brokers and builds funding collaborations. So here's an example of a partnership funded through a COVID-specific grant that was available through the NSERC Alliance program earlier this year. The Akbari Lab partnered with Reolution Life Sciences, a company with an analytical instrument that tests the viscoelasticity of soft biomaterials. And the partnership is studying pulmonary fibrosis and COVID-19 through real-time monitoring of tissue stiffness in bioengineered tissue models. So we're very excited to see the outcomes of this research. On the right, when our researchers make discoveries through partnerships or their own research, they also report these discoveries or disclose them to our office. In 2017, Dr. Akbari and his collaborators reported designing and developing a prototype for a breakthrough technology in wound management, a smart bandage that incorporates smart drug delivery. If you caught the talk earlier this fall by Brent Gordeau, you may already know that 4M Biotech is a startup company co-founded by Dr. Akbari here in Victoria. And through our office, they have an exclusive license to the smart bandage technology and are working to bring it to market. Interestingly, almost 1/3 of our license deals that have been negotiated over the last 3 years have been to aid the launch or growth of UVic startups. Next slide. So we also co-host events such as our annual Biomedical Engineering and Health Showcase. These events, whether large or small, highlight UVic research and our existing industry collaborations. We also include networking time to bring together students, researchers, and industry partners, which sparks new collaborations. We host individuals or delegates of companies on campus, such as the Bayer on campus visit, where Bayer staff traveled to selected universities across Canada to meet with students and researchers. At the bottom left, we also travel and attend conferences and networking events on behalf of the university. A very productive meeting I had at a bioconference a couple of years ago resulted in the first of its kind open innovation program that was launched with Leo Pharma, a global leader in medical dermatology. Students at UVic synthesize molecules which are later screened for medical properties by Leo Pharma in Denmark. And this partnership creates a unique experimental and experience-based learning opportunity. Our office has also previously facilitated faculty member involvement in industry innovation program, open innovation programs, such as those sponsored by Eli Lilly, Google, Samsung, and Intel. And at the top right, Victoria is home to Starfish Medical, Canada's largest medical device design, development, and contract manufacturing company. Hopefully you caught their founder and CEO, Scott Phillips's e-seminar a few weeks ago. The UVic BME program has done something really unique with this relationship that UVic built with Starfish and created an experimental learning course that is industry taught. In the picture, you'll see Dr. Stephanie Willerth and Starfish employees discussing the human factors and usability engineering course offered through BME, which is focused on designing medical devices. This is a unique hands-on course where students get to interact directly with industry representatives and ask questions. And the course includes guests from other groups such as Island Health. And it's a great example of a connection that our faculty have taken and turned into something bigger. So these are just a few examples of our research partnership activities and their outcomes. But now I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Aislinn Sirk to talk about patenting and IP management technologies or activities.
Hello. Thank you, Lindsay, for the great overview of everything that we do in our office. I like to say that our job entails everything from ordering the salads for the networking events through to the details of licensing deals and patent prosecution. It's quite a wide range of activity. So I'm just going to focus on a small aspect, and I'm going to give a brief overview of intellectual property in general. So intellectual property underpins everything that occurs at the university, and it's a really important part of our job in research partnerships. To understand intellectual property, it's helpful to understand property in a legal sense, and property is something that can be owned and or controlled. So like a car or a sandwich, that's property. Intellectual property is intangible creations of the mind, but that sense of ownership and control still applies. I've got to get back onto my slides there. So according to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, intellectual property are creations of the mind in a form that can enable others to recreate them. And so let's say that you have gone out and invented the world's best wasp trap, which I really hope you do because I really dislike wasps. But you've only thought of the plan and it's just sitting in your brain. That's not intellectual property. However, if you take the world's best wasp trap and you build a prototype of it, or you write down a description of it, or a design, or you talk about it on a YouTube channel, it is now an idea that you can share, and it has become intellectual property. And once you share the idea, you can choose how and where and when to share the idea, which also becomes ideas you share and protect. So that's the nugget of intellectual property. Beyond that, there's 4 main baskets that we put intellectual property into. Those are trademark, which will protect a brand, copyright, which protects the expression of an idea in fixed format, exactly in that format. It's basically throwing something onto a photocopier. It's the right to copy is associated with copyright. Patents, which give you the right to apply for a patent and protects an idea that is useful. And then finally, we have the other category, which covers a whole host of things: plant breeder rights, integrated circuit diagrams, and probably the most useful one there is trade secrets. And then I always like to mention software code. As software falls partway between copyright and patent, the code as written, that Control-C, Control-V, is covered under copyright, but the function of the code can be protected under patent if you decide to file that. So if you think about this amazing wasp trap that you've invented, you could come up with a name for your company, such as Wasp Zapper, and protect that under trademark. You could write an article in a local trade magazine, and that would be covered under copyright, as would the accompanying photos, which you would probably assign to that magazine. And then the design of the wasp trap itself would be covered under patent. And then the code, perhaps for the app that accompanies your wasp trap, would be software, which could be covered under copyright. You could file a patent for it, but it's fairly complicated, or you could keep it a trade secret and not share it with anyone. The next thing I want to touch on just briefly is the idea of ownership versus inventorship, because once you create something, you are the creator or you're the inventor, and that's immutable. So this is an example of a patent that was filed through our office, and the inventors were four UVic professors. However, they chose to assign their rights in this intellectual property to the University of Victoria, and in exchange, University of Victoria paid the upfront patenting costs for this patent, and then they will share in any resulting revenue coming out of it. But inventorship itself is immutable. You can't give that up. Okay. So I hope that gave you a brief teaser of intellectual property, and I look forward to answering all of your questions on this, which I hope you have a lot. As you can see here, you can protect inventions, expressions of ideas, brands. A trade secret says any, but you couldn't use a trade secret to protect a brand, so that's just my thing. And they also vary tremendously in cost. Patents cost, that's not $10, that's $10,000, $50,000 per country. Copyright is free and goes across all countries. And a trademark you have to apply for in each country, and it costs a couple $1,000s there. All right, I look forward to all your questions, and now I'm going to hand this over to Jerome, who's going to tell you all about starting up your own successful company.
Well, thank you very much, Lindsay and Aislinn. So Human, if you can share your screen, that would be.
Yeah, can you please just stop sharing, because I can only share.
So Aislinn, you need to stop sharing your screen.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how I actually do that.
There's a
the pop-up when you hover over your picture.
Yeah, if you hover over.
Yeah, I can toggle mic, toggle video, toggle HD video.
Yes, thank you.
I think we lost her in the process.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, Aislinn. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. My name is Jerome Eduardo. I'm the Associate Director for the Coast Capital Savings Innovation Center at the University of Victoria. We are the on-campus startup incubator program, so we support startup companies, and I will talk a little bit more about it through this presentation. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Thanks. So our services at the university is for faculty, students, staff, and alumni. So we support anyone within the university community who has an idea and would like to pursue it, whether they're exploring, they actually have an idea or a business already. We are there to provide support. We are looking at providing broader support into supporting the community, and that's one day, hopefully, we can support everyone, because within the Victoria area here, the startup has been growing rapidly, and we've been seeing a lot of success in this region. So it's Victoria. If you're thinking about entrepreneurship and you're thinking about innovation, Victoria should be on your list, especially for those of you who are living outside of the Victoria region. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Thanks. So our services fall under three areas. We have the startup service, we have the experiential and dynamic learning, and the community building. And I will talk about the community building and the experiential learning in this section a little. The experiential learning and the dynamic learning, we work with students to help them gain the knowledge that they need to put a team together, to bring the different skill set together, to develop their own skill sets, and to be able to prepare them for a startup, for the startup world. One of the things we have in UVic at the University of Victoria is what we call entrepreneurial co-op, and that is we have some funding for students that allow them to work on their own idea during a semester, so they can take a semester off and they can work on their own startup company while getting credit for that semester. So it's at University of Victoria, we have what we call these co-op programs. It's more like a paid internship where students goes out to industry, and they work, have some experiential learning, and for a semester, and they have credit for it. At the center, at the Innovation Center, we use a similar model for students who are pursuing their own idea. So we are able to support them through that process and provide them, some of them, with funding. And so it's a great way for a student to spend 4 months working on their own idea and bringing it to market. We also have some of the other programs that are, for example, the MyTax. We have MyTax in Canada that have a program called the Entrepreneurship Accelerator program, and it's where a founder of a company can invest on conducting research on their own technology. And so we support those types of activities within the center. If you can go to the next slide, please. So thank you. For our startup support, we have a prototype and business development fund. So part of our programming, we have a small pot of money that we are able to provide entrepreneur with enough funding to be able to help them build some of their prototypes. So for example, students or someone starting out their business may have a proof of concept that they would like to develop, and it may cost a few $100 or a couple $1,000. We may be able to assist them in providing that funding so they can have that concept developed and tested. One of the greatest thing that you can have within any entrepreneurial space is mentorship. And we focus a lot of our attention on mentorship because that's very, very important in the startup world. We have space on campus for startup companies, and actually Forum Biotech, they were at the space until COVID. We had COVID, but it's a space where startup companies can use the space to be an operational space. Access to network and funding. So we work with regional partners and funding agencies, network with angel investors. And so we have a network within the region that we work together on trying to bring these startup companies to bring their products and services to market. We run these seminars, workshops, events, and then we have pitch and business plan competitions where we run these competitions. We bring in judges, external judges from the community with various skill sets, subject matter experts, investors, and have them on a panel. And we run these 90 seconds pitch competitions and business plan competitions every semester. And we give away around close to $10,000 each semester to the winners of these competitions. The next slide, please. So our approach is really trying, and hopefully we'll talk more about this on the Q&A during the Q&A session, is that we focus our attention on identifying a problem and need. Many times you would find people have solutions, but they have solutions for something, but nobody knows what the problem really is. And so we try to work the other way around. We try to really focus on identifying a problem. From my personal experience as an engineer, the clearer someone can identify a problem and clearly communicate the problem, you can actually see what the solution is without knowing what the possible solution is. So as an engineer, if someone clearly indicate a problem to you, you probably start thinking that, there is, your brain start thinking and you can start visualizing possible solutions. So we really focus on problem and the need. Then the second part about that is customer discovery. Really talking to customers, getting out, talking to customers, trying to figure out if validating whether the problem statement is correct, and the third part is determine what segment of that population, what segment of the population is affected or is needing a solution for that particular problem. And then we work through the business model, build the product, test it, launch. And so that's our basic approach. So we really try to focus on very low level aspects of entrepreneurship and very hands-on theories that students and entrepreneurs and faculty members can use. And hopefully we can talk more about different approaches during the Q&A. As I said earlier, we support students, staff, faculty, and alumni. Over the last 5 years, we have seen probably over 100 new startup companies came out of the university, and they're from all different sectors. You have the biotech sector is one of the area that is a very active area in Victoria. Clean tech, there is some convergence also between clean tech and some of the biotech. For example, again, I will pick in Mosen's company, Forum Biotech. They're developing their technology, but they're having a clean tech aspect to it. So you start seeing some of these convergences, and so clean tech, biotech are some areas that are a hot topic at the University of Victoria. So if you're outside of UVic and you're ever thinking of moving to Victoria, it's a great place to move to and consider for grad studies or even to work and play. So with that, I will open it up with my colleagues for Q&A, I guess. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Jerome, Aislinn, and Lindsay, for your very nice overview of the University of Victoria Research Partnership Unit, and then also the Innovation Center. I had an opportunity to work with both units at the University of Victoria, so I quite know, I'm quite familiar with their activities, and it's very, and I can tell you that it's very, very useful for those who want to start a company. They have an idea and they think that they want to start a company and then follow their dreams as an entrepreneur, I highly recommend them to start communicating with their research partnership unit and then also innovation center at their tech transfer units at their institutions and at the very early stages, because I'm telling you, it's a very long process, and it took us 3 years to learn only 10% of the process. So, connect with them as soon as possible. So I'll start with a few questions, but if the audience has any questions from our panelists, feel free to ask your questions in the ask a question box. Again, this is a very important part of translational research, which I see is missing in many areas. And then us as researchers, we usually do not communicate well with our tech transfer units. So I highly encourage you to the participants to engage in this and in the discussion today. So what I would like to start with is a question that is general, and then I'll ask from Lindsay, and then and Aislinn can also answer this question, and then also so Jerome. So the question is that let's say I'm a grad student and I have an idea and I would like to bring it to market. So where should I start? So maybe Lindsay can.
Well, I think with most university technology transfer policies, you would start by coming to your tech transfer office, so your Industry Liaison Officer or the equivalent, and disclosing your idea. If it's something that you think might be patentable, we can help you along the way to evaluate the technology, see if you could file for a patent, or Aislinn talked about other types of IP as well, like copyright protection. And so we can help you decide what type of IP it is, how to best protect it, and then help you protect that so that when you go into your innovation center, and I'll let Jerome talk about that part, you're ready to roll.
Right. The thing I'll add to that is, because you mentioned it was a grad student, generally you'll talk to your supervisor as well. So,
and then
yeah, ask your supervisor what they think of it. Regardless, like, make sure you have the conversation with your supervisor, but then just talk to the tech transfer office. We're more than happy to sit and say, hey, that is a great idea. Come back in a year. And then we can talk about things like when you can disclose, because if you have a great idea and you throw it up on a poster and you present it, you've started to lose rights to file for a patent. And that's a continuous thing that we have in academia. If you publish something, you won't be able to file in Europe anymore for a patent. You will have some rights to file in Canada and the US, but it's best to file a patent before you publish. And just have the conversation about it.
That's a very good point. So I'll get back to this thing in a minute, but I want to hear Jerome's opinion on my question.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I completely agree with Lindsay and Aislinn just said, and about talking with your supervisor, talking with your industry liaison officer at your respective institution. Try to understand what the process is. Ensure that I can't stress enough the importance of being able to have some unfair advantage with your technology, meaning in this case could be filing a patent application or in some cases might be a trade secret, or to be able to have that protected in some way or the other, and trying to figure out how to do that. So work with the expert to be able to do that, because you're in biotech area, in most cases, patents are very, very critical, and sometimes and trade secrets process involving certain process, and and protocols are very important in protecting. So I would recommend that you do that as quickly as possible, and before you disclose it to anyone.
Well, that's a very good point that you brought up. So there's always, so in academia, so I'm a PhD student and I'm trying to graduate and I want as many papers as possible, right? So I want to publish. I want to go there. Believe me, it's a good thing. You go out there and then you showcase your work, and then you show it to other people, and then people say what a great work, and then you feel like proud of your achievements. But how do we balance between these two? So Aislinn, you mentioned that we will ask you to come back in a year, but in a year we want to have some sort of publications. What is the best strategy to protect your idea, and in the meantime maintain your publication report and presentation, and other things that help you with creating or improving your portfolio in terms of CV and others.
Right, yeah. In academia, there's this constant tug between wanting to publish, because obviously it's publish or perish. The grad students want to publish, the professors want to publish. It's obviously important. And the idea that you need to not publish in order to patent. Generally, we can work around this. I'd say the publication isn't such a big deal, because by the time you're ready to publish a full paper, you have enough of the technology available to evaluate it, decide if it's patentable, and if you get the paper at the early stage, you can then, while you're working on the paper, work on the patent at the same time and get the patent filed before the paper is published. It's more ad hoc talks and posters that can be a disclosure issue, because those you might be presenting preliminary results and stuff. So there's sort of two ways around it. One is don't present that material, hold back a little bit of it on a poster, and sometimes you can get away with that if you can keep back the structure. Or you can also file what we call as a provisional patent, and those are filed with a bunch of material, and they're fairly cheap to file. If you're doing it on your own, you can file one for about $300 through our office. It usually costs $1,000 because we actually work with lawyers for this, but there's ways to file it on your own. And what it does is it protects that idea, and it gives you the right to file a patent within a year. So you can file everything. There's no formalities associated with it. At the end of the year, that provisional patent will just go poof and expire unless you decide to make it into a full patent. And so that's another option. The problem I find with that option is sometimes you file the provisional patent, and then that year passes really quickly, and you have a hard deadline that you need to file a full patent in. So we try not to file provisional patents, but it is an option if you're about to go and present stuff.
Any other comments? You good? Okay. So speaking of patents, again, I'm just sticking to patents because we have this experience in patenting, and it's very important. As Jerome mentioned, patenting is, especially in biotech industry and in biotech startups, it's very important. So you start with filing a patent, and then, but at the same time, you need to think about the future. So let's say you want to start a company. This provisional patent is something that that is basically expires after a short period of time, and then you need to decide whether you want to go into the you know, a ward patent, file a ward patent, or you go into each jurisdiction. So how do you strategize at the beginning? Which path do you want to go? Do you have to start with the ward patent first, or should we go into each jurisdiction and then file a patent? Any comments on this?
I think, Jerome's trying to talk, but he's muted, so I'll just jump in there. Well, as Aislinn mentioned, you'll often start with the provisional, and then that expires after 12 months. You know, you can draft a really quick provisional. You have to be careful with that to make sure that you've covered the scope of your application. So sometimes you will have drafted an entire patent, put the cost up front. Usually the provisional in the US, if you filed it before your disclosure, can be converted into, for example, a PCT or international application after the 12 months, which will buy you worldwide protection, but is also a placeholder. Most of the time, people will do these steps when they've come out of the university and they have an early technology, because they might not know what national jurisdictions they want to file in yet. You're still looking at the market. You're still working with your tech transfer office and your incubator to try and launch your company, for example. And costs build up really quickly with patenting. So you have to be very, very strategic. So we'll often go in these cases, the provisional, then PCT route, and then choose jurisdictions at that point in time. And we try to choose the jurisdictions really strategically, and especially if there's a startup company involved with a tight budget, because those costs can add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars very quickly for the attorney fees. So, you know, I advise people to really think about their patent strategy early and consult not only with their university, but with their business mentors as well to get the best strategy in place. And that'll save a lot of time and headaches and costs in the long run.
I think filing patents is it depends on the stage you're at, and as adding to what Lindsay just said, if your intent is to start a business, your patent filing becomes a business decision. It's based on your market size, and which jurisdiction. And so that's a careful consideration, because let's say you're developing a technology and it's only applicable to probably the United States, then it makes sense to be able to file in the US. On the other hand, you might develop a technology that has global impact, and the market is globally, and so you want to be able to file patents in the different jurisdictions to ensure that you have the ability to operate and to have an advantage over your competitors in those areas. So I think it's a business decision. It's also a decision based on sometimes financial aspect, because the startup companies, you don't have a lot of money, and so that influences the strategy and the way you file. And so there's a number of considerations, but my recommendation is always to work with your team to figure out, to understand the market and to be able to file accordingly.
So maybe, thank you very much. So maybe the largest market is probably jurisdictions with the largest market is an obvious probably area or jurisdiction for filing a patent. So, Aislinn, did you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think two things. Well, jurisdiction-wise, I think about 80% of our patents are filed just in the US, because that's the cheapest. It's the same cost to file in the US as it is to file in Canada, and it's 10 times the market. And then the other thing I just want to mention, because there is the provisional thing. This isn't the way the university would run things, but if you're going to do your own startup, like out of the backyard, you can file a provisional. It expires in a year. you can then file another provisional. Sometimes people do this as just a tiny bit of a marketing gimmick, but also trying to see whether or not various ideas would get legs. So you file the provisional, you shop around the idea, you see if you get investment in it. If you generate a whole bunch of interest in those 6 months, then maybe you file the full patent and go all in on that. Or you look to see whether or not you can keep it as a trade secret or something like that. Filing the provisional allows you to say that you've got patent protection, but you can actually keep filing those for those, few $100s versus the hundreds of thousands of dollars if you actually want to go full on in all jurisdictions. So patent protection runs the range from like the most shadowy little provisional through to I've entered into 10 jurisdictions.
I just want to mention one other point in deciding on your jurisdictions, because I forgot to cover it and nobody else has mentioned it yet, is thinking about where your competitors are. So we talked a lot about size of market. You also want to know your competition, and often we filed in obscure European countries specifically because there's a large competitor there as well. So you really need to do your research.
I see. Well, that's a very good point, and I agree with you. And sometimes it's going to be very difficult to go against those, especially large companies, because the way they file patents is that they pretty much cover everything. So finding a way around it is going to be super difficult. But again, I mean, that's something that we can certainly work on and then do. So, Human, do you have any questions that you wanted to ask? Because I have plenty of questions.
Yes, thank you so much. I always have this question. We have a technology or we have an invention in the lab, and then we have industrial partner or university. And at the end of the day, I would like to know who is the owner of the technology, who is, and what's the split? I mean, what's the share at the end with me and the partners? So can you just elaborate a little bit more on that? How we have to deal with our partners?
It depends.
It depends on what.
Okay, so I mentioned UVic, we have a creator-owned intellectual property policy. So if you're working at the university, and this varies university to university, it's not guaranteed, and you have a NSERC discovery grant, for example, and you do some work on your NSERC discovery grant, that intellectual property belongs to yourself and everyone else who is a co-inventor on it. At UVic, there's still obligations back. You have to disclose, and if you make a large amount of money on it, there's a 20% cost on that. So it's creator-owned with entanglement. However, if you have an industry partner associated with it, then you've probably done something like the old CRD grants or maybe the Alliance grant. So what will have happened is the company and the university and the PI will have agreed before the money shows up on what the intellectual property arrangements will be. And so that's a lot of what Lindsay and I do in the office is we work on these IP arrangements. And in some cases, the company pays, the company has all the commercial rights, and the university always returns rights for research and teaching purposes. But the company has the right to commercialize. But if they don't actually patent, those commercial rights are not, unless you protect it, the commercial rights, they have the right to commercialize, but so would everyone else because it is open source at that point. Or you might say, okay, you're going to get an option to license this. So the company might get an option to license the technology. So they pay for the development of the technology, they get to direct some of the research, and at the end of it, they have an option to license it. Or you could say that they get a non-exclusive commercial license. Or in some cases, it has gotten to the point where I have carved up pieces of IP where somebody has the right to use these nanowires in this specific application, and the researcher retains the right to use the nanowires in these other 7 applications, and we will agree to discuss for the rest of the applications. Or you can do it by jurisdiction. You can say you can use anything that you want in the United States and we retain commercial rights in Canada. So, or you could say you get commercial rights. Another one I've done is this company has commercial rights for the next 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, the rights will revert back to the university, or we can negotiate for a license. So it gave the company 3 years to come up with a sound commercial case for this. And that one had a little bit of software associated with it, so you want to have that there. So it depends. Lindsay?
Thank you so much.
I think there's a lot of detail there. I think all I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge everybody who's at an institution in the audience to go and look up their IP policy and understand, is it creator owned? Is it institution owned? I'd love to do a show of hands, but we can't do that in this format. Just how many people actually know what their institution's policy is around intellectual property ownership. And I think it's an important thing to do before you even start inventing. I've worked with groups who have institution-owned IP policies and had no idea that the institution owned their own IP. If you're working at a company, most likely the company probably owns your IP anyways, but it's good to know what's in your employment contract if it's, goes against that. As default, at least in Canada, it'll be that the company owns it if you're hired to create. So I think, these are things you should educate yourself on early. And I think it's a good, maybe it's a Christmas break activity to just, read through your IP policy and see where you're starting from.
Yeah, I was going to spend my Christmas break eating cookies, but
Me too.
Yeah, that was a bit of a joke. But
no, that's a very good. Again, if someone wants to, if you want to commercialize something, an idea from your research, I think the obvious first step is to go and then learn about your rights and university's rights. To understand it first before you move on to the next steps. And then as Aislinn and also Lindsay mentioned, it's different from institution to institution. So University of Victoria has its own policy, IP policy, and it may be different than University of Montreal or University of Toronto and then other universities. So it's absolutely critical for you to go and then talk to your tech transfer units, industry partnerships, and then understand these policies. Human, do you have any other question?
Yeah, just a follow-up. There have been some cases that I heard in the past. For example, the university couldn't find investor or the partner to commercialize your IP. That's most of the time university don't go after your investors for you, but they release the rights for you, so you go and you start up your company. Find the investor and start your own company. So in that case, so the university afterwards is, if the company is profitable, there's no right for the university because they already released that. Is that the case also? Have you been, experienced? Have you experienced such a thing in UVic?
We have. So yes, if things haven't been commercialized and we decide that we're going to drop the patent, so we're not going to pay any more additional patent fees, at that point, we release the patent back to the original inventors and they can choose to continue that. I think we have in our policy that it can't be more than the cost of the patent if we sell it back to them, but I think in most cases we actually just release it back to them. So that definitely happens. After that, I have no examples of someone who has taken that released IP and gone on to create an asset company from that.
Yeah. So yeah, please go ahead.
In that example, I think as well, maybe more applicable for an institution-owned IP policy. With UVic, we do have those options up front as well. So in an institution-owned IP policy, if we're working, for example, with UBC, they'll automatically own the IP, but that's when that release comes in. We, not always, but we hope at UVic we've had those conversations up front and don't have to switch, partway through patenting. But I've had them switch both directions. I've had PIs who've gone out on a creator-owned path, racked up a lot of patent costs, and then come back and assign the technology to the university to commercialize later. So it definitely happens in both directions.
Yeah, but I remember it was a company. I don't want to name the company, but like the university released the patent, and then the company become $1 billion company. So I don't know how they evaluated the IPO in the university. This kind of, I don't know, like I think they regret it afterwards. So so if we look at the chat box, Mohsen, I think Chris has a follow-up on something. If you can read the Chris point, that would be great.
Yes. So Chris is another industrial liaison at the University of Victoria. So I think everyone is can see this comments. What he's saying is that the business models tend to derive the type of IP protection. So that's something that I think is very important. And it depends on your business model. So if you develop a technology and then you need to develop a business model and then look at your business model to see what is the best strategy to protect your idea in different jurisdictions. Thank you very much, Chris, for your comment. So let's.
Sorry, I'd like to add quickly to the previous point, is that I think one of the responsibility of researchers also and innovators, if you innovate a technology and you file a patent, you're the expert in that field. You are the one that knows the ins and out, and you're the ones that know your competitors. You know what's the industry, what the market looks like from a scientific perspective. And so I think it's important for the creators of IP to be involved in that process, to be able to have conversations with the university and the Industry Liaison Officers with respect to the value of that patented technology. Because sometimes, definitely, for example, there might be, sometimes there can be possibility where there might be a misalignment of resources between where you can have a physicist develop a technology, but someone like me, an electrical engineer, is assessing that technology. And even though I may have most of it, the market side are correct, I may not know the details of all of the information, but the creator would have all of the background knowledge. And so it's important to have that discussion to ensure that doesn't happen where things fall through the cracks.
Well, thank you very much, Jerome, for your last comment. So let's just shift gears. So we have only 20 minutes left, and then maybe I'll ask a question that I always had when I was introduced to the Innovation Center. Now I know the answer, but I think maybe there are some participants that they do not know the difference between an incubator and an accelerator. So maybe you can elaborate on a little bit and then tell us, first of all, what are the differences between these two kinds of units, and then also when is a good time to enter in any of these incubators or accelerators?
Okay, so that's thanks, Mohsen. there is a difference between incubator and accelerators, and it depends on, again, this is a question also is dependent on the region you live in, because in some cases it's used interchangeably, but in Canada here, generally speaking, an incubator is more of an early stage support mechanism that would help entrepreneurs who are exploring, have an idea, and would like to start out their journey, entrepreneurial journey, and looking for a place to be able to, a safe space that they can work in and being able to have resource and build on that idea. And so being able to develop your business model and things like that. An accelerator is more of a, as it says, accelerator is being able to accelerate the growth of the company and enabling the company to be able to the growth stage. And so that's a traditional, in the Canadian environment, we've been using it a lot. In some other areas, I know some people don't like to use the word incubators because it's, and so they end up using accelerators instead of incubator. But the intent of incubator as us is to be able to focus on the early stage and help with the some of the important things that you need at the early stage. So for example, as I said in the presentation earlier, is that we focus on being able to identify clearly what the problem is. That's one. So basically, at an incubator, you will be able to validate whether your idea is a viable idea or not. The second thing is that you will be able to work with mentors to be able to establish a team. So any startup company to be successful, you need a team. You can't do it alone. Anytime you try, you need a diverse group of people. Business require many different expertise. You have the business side, you have the engineering side, especially in the biotech field, it's even more diverse, where you have scientists, you have engineers, you have business folks, sales, marketing. So there's a whole bunch of people that you need to bring together as a team to ensure that the business move forward. And the third thing is around planning, and like planning, being able to understand what your planning, what your runway looks like, what is your resources requirement, what are the different risks that is involved. What is the strategy of raising capital, and all of these things come into play. And so an incubator is a very good space to be able to have that initial set of considerations established, and then once you have that ready and your company is at somewhat of a reasonable footing, then you are able to enter into an accelerator program that would able to help you accelerate and grow fast and get your company out in the marketplace and making a difference. So in Victoria here, we have the University of Victoria, we have an incubator program, but we have Biotech, which is the accelerator program here in the region, and they support more of the later stage companies. So that's the main differences and the support mechanism that you would find mainly in an incubator.
Let me unmute. Okay, that's great. That's great. So you are in an incubator. So I'll just ask this question: when do you think is a good time to move on? So how many years? So well, I mean, just as a rule of thumb, if it's like a PhD, if you do a PhD for 10 years, it's time to go, right? So my question is probably this: so Jerome, when will you kick us out of the incubator?
I think it depends on the incubator program, and it depends. So at the University of Victoria, we do have our incubator program, and because we focus on a diverse group of set of innovation, we support social innovation, and within the region here, we have the biotech accelerator program that I spoke about, but they focus mainly on tech software area side of things. And so for us, our incubator program is an open-ended one. We don't have an end date where we kick people out. Other regions, there is a 6 months program, a 3 months program, and then they expect you to be out. For us, it's a different approach because we try to ensure that the startup company has enough support to be able to stand on its own and be able to provide that support as long as we can to ensure that as I said, the company can stand on its own. So it depends. There is no again, it's a personal decision based on the business model of the incubator program and a number of factors that come into play. So that's but the reality is it's good for startup companies to be able to be out of the incubator program so they can actually look at other support mechanism that can ensure there is broader support. And it's always recommended, even when you're in the incubator program, is to be able to look at what other support mechanism are there to support the startup as you're growing, because there are so many needs and it's all dependent, as I said earlier, on a number of factors. So as you're planning your financials, for example, and you have your runway, let's say for the next 18 months, you're developing, let's say, a biomedical device, and for the next 12 months, you need money to be able to develop the prototype. And then the following 6 months, you need regulatory approval. So you're raising money for 18 months. Okay, so you're raising money to support that 18 months of activities. But once you have that 18 months of activities, then you may need to get into like a larger amount of fundraising, which to be able to bring the product to market, all right, is to be able to go through other trials and maybe production and set up in manufacturing infrastructure, whatever it might be. And so the incubator program might be only able to provide, or the network within the incubator program is more set up to be able to provide you with that 18 months of funding. But beyond that, at the acceleration stage, you may need Accelerator, where they work with venture capitalists and people with who would invest more heavily into companies. And so you need to be able to, that's part of the planning process also, that and considerations that as CEOs of a startup company will think about. So to answer your question, Mohsen, there is no easy yes, no, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, you got kicked out. No, it depends on the environment, the community, and the support network that is available.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, that's good to hear. So we're going to stay here as long as possible with you guys. So in the interest of time, what I wanted to ask from our panelists is to share with us like their last, some concluding remarks. Is there anything that you wanted to mention to our participants? Anything that you feel like was missing in the discussion that you think all of us need to know? Maybe something in the maybe some advice for us, something that you want us to do to become successful entrepreneurs. So we'll start with Lindsay, and then we can move on to Aislinn and Jerome.
Well, there's so many things to cover, but just building off of what Jerome was thinking or talking about as well, I want to say to students who just have a interest in entrepreneurship, but maybe not an idea yet, to still go and look and see if there's an incubator that they can go and connect with locally, or come to us if you're here in Victoria, because there's a lot of entrepreneurial skills that you can learn as well just by taking some of the courses that are offered and joining in Pitch It and Planet competition. So it's never too early if you have an early stage incubator to go and connect with them. And then just adding on to advice for later stage groups as well. Some companies don't remember to build a team. And if you were listening to all the steps Jerome was talking about, you'll realize you can't do it alone as one student or one PI, especially when you're talking about biomedical devices, for example. You maybe don't have the regulatory expertise, or maybe you don't have the IP expertise. So come to your tech transfer office, if you have a friendly one like we do, in your incubator, to help fill in some of those team supports that you might not have at the early stage, because you really do need all those supports. And if you don't have them as a member of your business team, look at your university and your incubators to see if they can fill in those gaps for you.
Great advice.
I think I'll reiterate one thing that I think has come through this is that, but I do have come up on occasion, is that a researcher will come up with a technology and then hand it over to the tech transfer office and think that that's the end of it, that the tech transfer office will take this, will find the licensees, will license it, and the researcher can sit back and collect checks. I haven't had that happen yet. So every single technology that has been successful has involved the continued and dedicated support of the original researchers. PIs often want to do this. Honestly, postdocs are better suited for this because they can finish their postdoc and then they can transfer into full-on running of a company. Every single successful venture that I've seen has had people running it who are absolutely unrelenting. And entrepreneurship and technical expertise in the university, it's great when they're complementary and they're going together, but they're not the same skill set.
Oh, thank you very much. That's a great advice. And again, I mean, one thing is like if you want to start a company, you have to make a decision, right? I mean, this is a very hard decision, but it's a very difficult decision to make. But you have to make a decision. It needs dedication. Because as Lindsay mentioned, you need to go and then learn about entrepreneurship. There are plenty of basically webinars and then seminars and then tools available to you that you can go and then learn. And also you need to spend time, and then you have to make a decision. It's not I mean, it's very difficult to run a company and and then be just spend like 20% of your time in the company. It's the success rate is very low if you do that. Let's hear Jerome's opinion on these, and then some last-minute thoughts.
Yeah. So I would agree with Lindsay and Aislinn and Mohsen, what you just said about I think it's important for entrepreneurs or for anyone who's thinking about starting your business to be. I know people within, especially subject matter experts in the engineering field, engineers love to build stuff, and a lot of times, like 20 years ago in my career, I used to build stuff just for the fun of it. Like, you have some parts and you can build stuff and test it, and because we like doing that, sometimes we think that building stuff and then we will find market for it afterwards. It might be a good idea. But I would just say, if you're thinking of commercializing anything, please, if you build it already, great. But if you didn't build it yet, stop. Don't do it. Just don't do it. I would recommend that you do your some preliminary research. All of us know how to use Google Scholar and Google very well. Try to understand, if there is a product like that out there, understanding the problem, and as I said before, know who the competitor, what are the advantages that you're bringing to the table, and then secondly, once you figure out and you have some validation there, is to talk with people. is to get out and talk to the expert, understand your customers, understand your users. So for example, let's say you're developing a new device that will enable people recover from certain physical disability, for example, right? Or physical, or let's say someone has a, I'm just trying to think of something very simple, but let's say somebody is recovering from stroke, right? And they have, and they need some assistive technology. Before you build it, you want to be able to understand the complexity of that disease and understand what are the issues. You want to know who are the people going to be using the device. And sometimes in Canada here, in some cases, you have a user and then you have a payer, which might be different. So in some cases, you might be having the government or some health agencies might be the customer, while the person who is experiencing the symptoms or the challenge is the user of the technology. So you have both considerations. So you have to talk with both groups of people to be able to understand understand that entire space, to be able to know what how many people are affected by this, how much is the government going to be paying, or the payer is going to be paying for this, and differentiating between a customer and a user, being able to understand that. And then once you understand that, you would have to be able to make a decision based on the information, whether it's worth pursuing it, given the size of the market, the financial aspect of it. And it helps you to understand what the decision would be, whether you would be doing this for fun as a non-for-profit, maybe. And it's fine to do that. Like, if you have the time in the world and you want to develop innovative technologies to be able to improve the lives of people, great. It's excellent. But at least you want to know what you're getting into, what are the business aspect of it, what is the social benefit. And then you as a person, as a founder of that enterprise, you need to understand what you're getting into and know what to get into. Because many times I have seen from my experiences that people get into areas and sometimes they don't know the full scope of it. And when they do get into it, they realize that it's more complex than what it is. So I would say, if you're thinking of starting a business, just stop, don't build anything, conduct your primary research, do your secondary, primary research, understand the scope, and then use the customer information to drive your product design, use the customer information and the user's information to drive what your strategy is going to look like. And things like that. So you want to be able to use the customer information to be able to understand what your market demographic is going to be and things like that. So it's a very, very important point that I want to stress. The second part of it, I talked about it before, is that you want to be able to have a team. Team is very important. So try to think about a team. And the third part is planning and plan carefully. And the final thing is that find a support network that is available within your region. If you're in Victoria here, the University of Victoria, the Incubator program at the Coast Capital Savings Innovation Center is here. But if you're other parts of Canada or globally, I would encourage you to find a support network that will be suitable for your business and be able to support you. And not only for the support, but also for the network, being able to network with someone else, and understand their pain points and understanding the cluster around what it looks like and what that ecosystem is all about. So I would encourage you to be a part of that.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Lindsay, Aislinn, and Jerome, for your excellent comments. As always, I'm learning from you guys, although we've been working together for more than 4 years now. But this is great to hear from your thoughts from the the partnership unit and then the other side of the spectrum. It's also, I would like to thank you for participating in this panel discussion today. So with that, I would like to also thank the participants, and I just wanted to let you know that today is our last day of the e-seminar series. We had our last presentation of 2020. We will start next year in 2021 with our speaker, Dr. Elik Gaethenlom, the CEO of CellLink. So it will be Wednesday on January 13th, 9 a.m. Pacific time and noon Eastern time. And then we'll continue these e-seminar series in the spring and in the summer. So if you have any comments, questions, feel free to email me and Human, and then also follow us on Twitter. Also, don't forget to watch our the videos of our previous speakers on our YouTube channel. And then last but not least, I would like to extend my gratitude, and I would like to thank our today's speakers, Dr. Aislinn Sirk, also Dr. Lindsay Frehlick, and then Jerome Eduardo. And also, I would like to thank our sponsors, TransMedTech, Montreal TransMedTech, CellLink, Forum Biotech, Stem Cell Technologies, Revolution, TerraCycle Institute, Fluid Form, and University of Victoria. Thank you very much, everyone, and then wish you a great holiday season again. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Sorry.
How do you exit this thing?
Close it.
How
You can
how
just
do
close
you exit?